Tonight, a small step towards normal. COVID rules to ease across Greater Sydney, but not everything's changing.
Unfortunately, dancing, singing is amongst the most dangerous things you can do with this rather evil virus.
Good evening, I'm Juanita Phillips. This is ABC News. A former bank employee jailed for stealing millions from the NAB. A teenage driver on murder charges after a pregnant woman and her partner were killed while walking their dogs. And who'll take care of Norfolk Island? The tiny territory considers cutting ties with New South Wales. COVID relief is coming for Greater Sydney. From Friday, several restrictions will be wound back. More people will be allowed to gather in homes and outdoors. And you won't have to wear a mask to go shopping. For a 10th day, the state has recorded no local cases of coronavirus. And if all goes well, more restrictions will be eased in a fortnight. But some hospitality venues are upset that the changes aren't happening as quickly as they'd like.
It's back to the future in Greater Sydney as some restrictions are reversed.
What would have taken us 4 or 5 months previously only took us about a month to get under control.
Health officials are confident the Northern Beaches outbreak is over and no local COVID cases have been found in 10 days. So from Friday, Sydney-siders won't be forced to shop in a mask.
We recommend a mask when you can't guarantee social distancing.
And masks will still be mandatory on public transport, at places of worship, hairdressers, beauty salons, in gaming rooms, or if you're a hospitality worker who has contact with customers.
I think it's worth protecting other people from the coronavirus.
If you don't wear it, you don't even know when you catch it.
Better safe than sorry, is my opinion.
Life will be more lively at home. The cap on visitors will rise from 5 to 30. Outdoors, you can gather in groups of 50. Weddings and funerals will be bigger at 300. Dancing and singing is still a no-no, except for the bridal party. They can boogie. The limit on other events and hospitality venues will be lifted, but the 4 square metre rule does apply.
We'd like to know why. Why is it always the hospitality industry?
Like so many other businesses, Alex & Co were banking on soon serving more customers.
Since the Avalon cluster, much has been revealed globally and in fact in Australia regarding the new strains of the virus. Things have changed.
Shish Thapalya is also doing it tough. Every one of his clients this month has cancelled their parties.
And we have to say to them, look, you can do everything, but dancing is not allowed. And that kind of put them back and said, look, we don't want to go ahead.
Unfortunately, dancing, singing is amongst the most dangerous things you can do with this rather evil virus.
Relief, the Premier says, is hopefully on its way. If COVID is still under control in 2 weeks, the 4 square metre rule will be replaced by 2 square metres. That would allow venues to double their capacity.
I mean, we're holding on, but yeah, fingers crossed for the hospitality businesses.
Until then, authorities are pleading with people to get tested, particularly in Sydney's west and southwest. Less than 10,000 swabs were taken yesterday. Jessie Dorset, ABC News, Sydney.
Tourists from a COVID-19 hotspot are facing heavy fines after breaching travel restrictions to visit federal parliament. Authorities are investigating the breach after 25 people from Sydney's Cumberland area spent time in the building's public spaces yesterday. The visitors allegedly lied to security guards when asked if they were from a COVID-19 affected area. Their trip was reportedly uncovered when one member provided their postcode while buying a souvenir. The public areas are now undergoing a deep clean. It's another sign of Australia's COVID bounce back. Spending in the final months of last year increased and it exceeded economists' expectations. Our inflation rate is now at 0.9%, and that's despite the country's first recession in almost 3 decades.
Kamal Joshi knows one way Australians have been spending their money. The greengrocer says a lag in international shipments and a lack of workers to pick local fruit means prices for our two-a-day have increased.
when there is more demand and less supply, my farmers and growers and agents, they increase up their prices, and then we have to, and it passes to us, so we had to increase the price.
As spending on fruit increased, the broader food category only rose slightly as vegetable prices fell. Spending on childcare rose again. Parents are now picking up the tab with the end of the government's subsidy. A tax hike meant spending on tobacco rose. And as state borders came down, Australians went on holiday. And spending on new houses rose as the government's home builder package was rolled out. The main drag was power prices. A one-off $600 credit for West Australians' power bills led to the strongest ever quarterly fall in electricity spending. Inflation of 0.9% for the last quarter is good news for economic recovery. But without one-offs like taxes and government subsidies, the actual figure is much less impressive.
The economy is recovering, and it's certainly not dropping, which is obviously very welcome to see, but it's certainly not really strong either.
After vaccines are approved, the rollout of the vaccine is critical to economic recovery, and the government has begun promoting the jab. Encouraged by plans to distribute vaccines worldwide, the International Monetary Fund has revised up its forecasts for the global economy, predicting it'll grow by 5.5% this year. It says our economy will increase by 3.5%.
And that is a function of our effective management of the health crisis, but also the unprecedented financial and economic support being provided by the Morrison government.
Support that'll run out at the end of March. Rachel Papazzoni, ABC News.
Australia is urging Europe not to disrupt the supply of COVID-19 vaccines to the rest of the world. Brussels has indicated it may restrict exports of vaccines produced in Europe if pharmaceutical companies under-deliver on their promises. Demand for the drugs is mounting as the number of people infected globally has risen above 100 million. Europe correspondent Linton Besser reports.
It might just be the most precious manufactured good on earth, and now a slowdown in the production of coronavirus vaccines has lit a political fire.
The European Union wants to know exactly which doses have been produced where by AstraZeneca so far, and if or to whom they have been delivered.
AstraZeneca has told its European customers to expect fewer doses of the vaccine than originally promised, and Brussels is not happy.
The answers of the company have not been satisfactory so far.
The EU has now flagged it may restrict exports of its own Pfizer vaccine, which is manufactured in Belgium.
In the future, all companies producing vaccines against COVID-19 in the EU will have to provide early notification whenever they want to export vaccines to third countries.
We expect and hope that our EU friends will honour all contracts.
The same vaccine is due in Australia later next month, but local authorities are unfazed by the European stoush.
At the moment, we don't have any concerns about the supply that Pfizer has coming into Australia.
Here in Britain, a grim new milestone. According to its statistics office, more than 100,000 people have now been killed by coronavirus. 60-year-old Femi Akinola was one of them. His son, Lobby Akinola, is frustrated by the UK's repeated failure to contain the virus.
The pain of losing someone you love is devastating. And to think that 100,000 people have died, people whose lives have been wrecked.
Britain's hospitals remain at breaking point, with more than 20,000 new cases overnight.
People need to know it is not a game. It is frightening.
Barbara Roberts died with coronavirus yesterday and wanted this message broadcast.
Just wear your mask and wash your hands. That's all it is, isn't it? That's all they've got to do.
Linton Besser, ABC News, London.
New Zealand is investigating 2 new possible cases of COVID-19 in the community. The pair are recently returned travellers. They tested positive after completing their mandatory 2 weeks of quarantine at the Pullman Hotel in Auckland. It's the same facility where a woman with the confirmed South African strain of the virus had stayed. Australia is due to decide tomorrow if it'll reopen the border with New Zealand after suspending the travel bubble on Monday for 72 hours. Indonesia has recorded 1 million coronavirus infections, with hospitals nearing capacity in cities such as Jakarta. The world's fourth most populous country is the hardest hit in Southeast Asia, and the low testing rate means the true number of infections is likely much higher. The death toll is now above 28,000. Hospitals are under mounting strain, with patients being turned away due to lack of beds and ventilators. Indonesia has begun an ambitious campaign to vaccinate up to 180 million people within a year, but some health experts are doubtful that can be achieved. Two families are in mourning tonight after a shocking crash in Brisbane that's killed a young couple who were expecting a child. The pregnant woman and her partner were walking their dogs and crossing the road when they were struck by an erratic driver. Police say emergency crews were confronted by a catastrophic scene. A teenager is now on murder charges, accused of driving a stolen car while under the influence.
This situation was about to spin out of control.
No, don't laugh at him, he's a dickhead.
The driver who let fly with abuse had allegedly stolen this four-wheel drive.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Police say it was a deliberate collision.
Are you guys hurt?
No, we've got a disabled son in the back of the car.
But the story got much worse. A couple crossing the same intersection minutes later was struck and killed, allegedly by the same driver. 31-year-old Catherine Ledbetter and her 37-year-old partner Matthew Field were expecting their first child.
You know, here's two people going about their business innocently on Australia Day, walking their dogs, you know. They should be entitled to do that.
A 17-year-old from Waterford West was charged with dangerous driving while intoxicated, car theft and 2 counts of murder, which could be upgraded to 3.
There is provision under the Criminal Code for offences relating to the killing of unborn children, and that is certainly something that we will be considering.
Police say what took place here yesterday was more than a tragic accident. They say the reason for murder charges is the teen should have foreseen his reckless actions could cost lives, and they did. At 5:10 p.m. at Vienna and Finucane roads, the teen allegedly rammed the silver Hyundai, then sped away. Nearby, Ms. Ledbetter and Mr. Field left home with their dogs. At 5:25 p.m, the teen returned and allegedly ran a red light, hit a truck and ploughed into the couple. They died, he fled. Minutes later, he allegedly tried to steal a car nearby. The owner crash-tackled him and police moved in.
When they got hit, one of the dogs sprinted off, and I sort of tried to look for it when I was jogging home.
A neighbour says the couple were renovating their home for their growing family.
Very quiet people, they're both very industrious.
Their deaths shook locals who'd never met them.
That really affected me, especially with a young baby.
The teenagers in custody after appearing in the children's court.
Look, it's a very traumatic experience for all involved.
The couple's missing dog was found today. Josh Robertson, ABC News.
A former National Australia Bank employee has been jailed for 8 years over a scam that netted her millions of dollars. Rosemary Rogers was arrested 2 years ago after a whistleblower alerted the bank to fraudulent transfers. The judge found it was absolutely staggering that the bank didn't have an audit system in place to detect the fraud.
Less than 2 years since turning herself in, fronting court for the last time, the disgraced former Chief of Staff to 2 NAB CEOs, Rosemary Rogers, arrived bags packed. Her co-accused, Helen Rosamond, ran Human Group, a company that provided functions and event services to NAB. Rogers, from Melbourne, pled guilty to a systemic and long-term defrauding of the bank of millions of dollars. Miss Rosamond would send invoices to Rogers, which the court heard the Chief of Staff knew were false, overinflated and exceeding legitimate expenses. Rogers ended up receiving more than $5 million in benefits from Miss Rosamond as an inducement or reward to ensure Human Group maintained a contract with NAB. Those inducements included a $620,000 trip with family to the United States, a $160,000 trip to Europe, a BMW SUV, a boat, and the purchase of homes and renovations. Rogers showed little emotion while being sentenced, with her eyes fixed to the floor. Judge Paul Conlon said he accepted she had shown genuine remorse since being arrested. He also said he found it absolutely staggering that the fraud wasn't detected by some appropriate system of internal auditing by NAB. The bank said it has now made changes to strengthen controls in our organisation, including additional checks on expenses. Helen Rosamond is awaiting trial. Rogers will be eligible for parole in late 2025. Tim Swanston, ABC News, Sydney.
It's a small Pacific island more than 1,600 kilometres northeast of Sydney. And for more than 5 years, New South Wales has been the caretaker for services on Norfolk Island. That arrangement is due to end this year, and it looks like the Sunshine State is the front-runner to take over.
Norfolk Island has a New South Wales postcode, but its people vote in the ACT. And there's now talk that another state, Queensland, might come on board as a provider of their essential services.
We've heard that New South Wales wants to abandon their responsibilities there, so we are very keen to have those further discussions with the federal government.
The New South Wales government has been running Norfolk Island's school and health system since the federal government revoked the island's self-ruling status in 2015. That service contract expires in June.
It's an issue we've been discussing with the Commonwealth for the past 2 or 3 years, and something we feel strongly about in terms of what needs to happen there.
The state government has committed to servicing the island until the end of 2021, and the federal government is liaising with other states to secure an arrangement for next year and beyond.
It's something we're giving some careful consideration to.
The island's administrator is confident the near 3,000 residents won't be left high and dry.
We've seen many Australians visiting Norfolk Island for the first time, a very remote part of a big country, and that's benefiting businesses here on the island, and we hope that will continue.
The Commonwealth Department of Infrastructure says the government is committed to the continuity of essential services. But until a deal is done, this far-flung island remains in a state of uncertainty. Jen McCutcheon, ABC News.
Still to come this hour, the vulnerable Australians still stranded overseas and losing hope.
It was heartbreaking to see that you had a flight and then to have that taken away with you within seconds.
I feel that if you've got money, you've got more chance of getting home.
Also, Dr Norman Swan examines how the worldwide scramble for COVID vaccines will affect Australia. That's coming up.
A TV Pentecostal pastor has pleaded not guilty to indecently assaulting a teenage parishioner in Sydney's southwest. Court documents allege John McMartin squeezed the breasts of an 18-year-old woman and put his hands down her pants at his home 8 years ago. Shortly after he was arrested and charged 2 months ago, the 66-year-old was stood down as head of the Inspire Church at Hoxton Park. His son Brendan and his wife Melissa have replaced him. The church has labelled the allegations shocking and says they are taking it extremely seriously. Thousands of farmers have clashed with police in the Indian capital New Delhi as a protest over agricultural reform turned violent. Protest leaders have condemned the violence, but they vowed to continue their demonstrations. South Asia correspondent James Oaten reports.
Full steam ahead. After campaigning outside the nation's capital, tens of thousands of protesters made their way into Delhi for the first time. They arrived with reinforcements.
We came here for our rights. This is the first time a government has forced farmers to hit the streets.
The protesters had negotiated an agreed route with police to enter, then exit the city. At first, there was a sense of exhilaration. But hopes of a peaceful protest were dashed when thousands burst through police lines. Police fired tear gas to try and disperse crowds, but they couldn't stop the barrage of heavy equipment. The protesters made their way to the historic Red Fort before finally dispersing. The reforms would erode large wholesale markets, something the government says will empower farmers.
If the government markets are abolished, then where will we sell our produce? We will be left at the mercy of private buyers.
The government really ignored the protests for months. For months on end, it behaved as though nothing was happening.
The government has recently offered to halt the laws for 18 months. Farmers are unwavering.
The Prime Minister Narendra Modi is seen by many as a hard man, and his government is renowned for rarely backing down. But the concessions being offered suggest the farmers' campaign is working, and that's only reinvigorated their efforts.
James Oaten, ABC News, Delhi.
US President Joe Biden is capping off his first week in office with another tranche of executive orders, this time targeting the issue of racial equality. Mr Biden signed measures to address discrimination in the housing market. He also directed the Department of Justice to curb the use of private prisons in a bid to stop corporations profiting off incarceration.
We need to make the issue of racial equity not just an issue for any one department of government. It has to be the business of the whole of government.
President Biden says the nation is less prosperous and secure because of the scourge of systemic racism. In finance, the local share market fell back today as resources stocks were sold off. Here's Alan Kohler.
Well, the market fell 0.7% and mining and oil stocks were all sold down quite briskly. Smash repair company AMA Group had a praying for a very unusual reason. The board put out a statement headed Update in relation to the CEO, Andrew Hopkins, and revealed that in September they had received a protected disclosure from an employee and engaged a big accounting firm to undertake a forensic investigation, which has now been completed. The result of it was not revealed. However, last night Mr Hopkins made an urgent application to the federal court alleging that he was being oppressed as a minority shareholder. The court ordered that he couldn't be sacked, pending a further hearing. Investors took all this in this morning and said, bugger this, we're off. Meanwhile, the stock on everyone's lips in New York at the moment is GameStop, a video game store that's now selling its games online. It's gone up 3,600% in 6 months in a frenzy of speculation, out-Teslaing Tesla and prompting market pundits to declare that the market has gone mad and to ring the bell for the top. The New York market did actually go down last night, but just a bit, while Asian markets rose. Iron ore and gold fell on commodity markets while oil went up and wheat sprouted, and the Aussie dollar was steady at 77.3 US cents. The IMF upgraded its forecasts for the Australian economy last night from 3 to 3.5% for this year and 2.8 to 2.9% for next year. The report included this chart. Now, it shows the IMF's forecast for China and advanced economies now and a year ago. It's the clearest thing I've seen yet of how China has snapped back and the rest of the world has not. And that's finance.
Cricket Australia has confirmed that members of the Indian cricket team were racially abused during the third cricket test in Sydney earlier this month. But the spectators who were forced to leave the stadium were not the ones responsible for the abuse. Here's the ABC's national sport reporter, David Mark.
When Indian fast bowler Mohammad Siraj accused spectators of racial abuse during day 4 of the third test here at the SCG, it threatened to derail the test series. Play was held up for more than 10 minutes while police and security guards spoke to spectators. Eventually, 6 men were ejected. Today, Cricket Australia confirmed that Siraj and other players were racially abused. But in a report from its head of integrity and security to the International Cricket Council, it found the 6 men ejected weren't responsible for that abuse. A spokeswoman for Cricket Australia said the organisation has told the men of its findings. New South Wales Police has also been investigating the allegations but has found no evidence to support any prosecution. But Cricket Australia's investigation is continuing as it continues to search through CCTV footage, ticketing information and interviews with spectators. Cricket Australia has once again apologised to the Indian cricket team. David Mark, ABC News, Sydney.
The Sydney Sixers have secured top spot in the Big Bash League after beating the Melbourne Stars by 5 wickets. The Stars needed to win the match and stop the Sixers from gaining a bonus point to make the finals. But the Sixers easily secured the extra point and then won the game with 1 ball remaining to knock the Stars out, with Dan Christian starring.
Oh, Dan Christian launches it over square leg.
The Sixers will host the Perth Scorchers in a qualifying final in Canberra this weekend. The winner will progress to the grand final. The 4th-placed Brisbane Heat will take on the Adelaide Strikers, and the winner of that game will play the Sydney Thunder in another knockout final. The AFLW begins its 5th season tomorrow, and everyone involved hopes there's no repeat of last year's abrupt finish. The 2020 grand final was scrapped because of the pandemic, and with COVID outbreaks already causing problems, it's set to be another challenging season.
After the 2020 AFLW season ended without a winner, there's an element of unfinished business this season.
Where you put so much into it to get that opportunity to play finals, and then the feeling, that hollow, empty feeling when it was just over.
It was particularly harsh on the undefeated Fremantle, and the Dockers' desire was evident in pre-season.
To start with, there was a lot of drive to really perform, and probably the first month after the season was over, some of the girls are training way too hard, but we've wound that back.
For the first time, AFLW fans will have to pay for tickets. Kids still get in for free, but it's $10 for adults. Already, some games have sold out.
Just seeing this week when the tickets gone on sale, the amount of fans that are disappointed that they missed out in getting tickets, that's fantastic for our game, and I think it's definitely the way forward.
The controversial conference system is gone.
I think probably like most players, glad to see the back of it.
A regular ladder will be used with the top 6 teams to play a 3-week final series. There'll be 9 regular season games, but players and coaches hope to have more next season.
Yeah, 18 or 22, maybe 30, more.
The competition's biggest challenge is border closures. GWS have already spent a month away from home, based in Albury and now Adelaide.
We do have a number of players who are still working 9 to 5, albeit remotely, and we also have a couple of mums in our hub, which has actually been really special.
The Giants are making the most of it, but hubs are a threat to a competition of athletes juggling footy with full-time jobs. Peter Lusted, ABC News.
Time for the weather now, and what a contrast today's been, Graham.
Yeah, if we compare it to yesterday, we need just a huge drop in temperatures. In contrast to that, though, minimums to maximums today, there was very, very little movement in those temperatures. Most suburbs are now colder than it was actually at 9 a.m. this morning. The showers are increasing. Falls at this stage, though, have been fairly patchy and light. Now, we've got a band of thick low cloud that's been spreading up the coast. This is in the wake of the southerly wind change. It's been producing some light drizzle, but those showers have increased about the central parts of the coast. Isolated showers and thunderstorms also developed about the northeast quarter, but most of those falls have been light so far as well. A cloud about the east is associated with a trough and a moist onshore wind flow, and it's bringing the potential of more widespread showers, particularly about the central parts of the coast and ranges, both overnight and through tomorrow, with the high maintaining the onshore winds and a few showers through to the weekend. And it will remain hot in the north with some more thundery showers about the southern inland tomorrow and Saturday. Damaging winds are possible for parts of Melbourne overnight tonight. Still heavy rain with flooding due to lows about northern Queensland and the northwest of the Territory and Kimberley. But for us, the showers are possible along much of the coast and ranges, much of the southern half of the inland, but it's from the Hunter to the mid-north coast through to the Sydney area that we will see the better of the falls. So in the northeast, partly cloudy on the tablelands and the northern rivers. It'll tend to overcast elsewhere with more widespread showers about the Hunter and southern mid-coast with some possible moderate falls. And strong winds on the Hunter waters and then north to about Smoky Cape as we move into the evening. It's going to be cloudy throughout with some morning showers on the Snowy Mountains, patchy elsewhere apart from the Blue Mountains and northern parts of the Illawarra where those showers are expected to be more widespread. Illawarra waters can expect a strong wind in the morning. Now, windy with possible showers and thunderstorms for the inland, though they're far less likely about the far west and far northern areas. Winds on the waters for Sydney, the closed waters that is, will be below warning strength. We've got lows of 17 to 20. Our tops will reach 21 to 24. It's going to be a cloudy day with fairly widespread showers. Fresh southeasterly winds, and these will tend gusty at times nearer the coast. We are showing plenty of showers, but over the weekend they'll be isolated and light, but it will be humid.
Thanks, Graham. Laura Tingle's here now with 7:30.
Welcome to the program. Shortly, I'll be talking to Opposition Leader Anthony Albanese about growing rumblings over his leadership. But first,